This is Analytical Media. We are a consortium, a group of therapists, college professors, and well-published peer-reviewed authors. Today's question: are sovereign citizens mentally ill? First of all, let's define sovereign citizens. Well, the U.S. government defines sovereign citizens as a domestic terrorist threat. And at one point, they were listed as the largest domestic terrorist threat. But you probably know them better as the people who think that they are above the law, that police don't have the right to arrest them, that they don't need to get driver's licenses, they don't need to register their cars, they don't need to have insurance, and the police have absolutely no right to stop them. They don't have to listen to the police. There are thousands of videos on YouTube with sovereign citizens. Books have been written on sovereign citizens. Now, the basic thought of the sovereign citizen is that the American government, which is simply a group of laws that were put together to form the Constitution, and then the Constitution itself, which allowed for the states to make additional laws and give the power to the state for it to allow municipalities and cities to make additional laws. And in reality, though America is supposed to be the land of the free, and you hear people say that, this is America, I'm free. You're free in America. Well, you're free to do anything that the law does not prohibit. How many laws are there? Believe it or not, no one knows for sure. The best estimate is around a couple of 100,000, maybe a little more. People just don't keep track of how many laws there are. Because don't forget, you have the federal laws, and then you have all the state laws and all the city laws and all the township laws. So you are free to do anything that is not prohibited by those hundreds of thousands of laws. You are not free to drive past a school zone at any speed you want. Not free to do that. You're not free to drive down the highway at any speed you want. You've got to follow the posted speed limit. You're not free to steal money from the bank, to rob your neighbor. You're not free to kill someone. There are laws that limit you. You're not free to put up a fence if the HOA prohibits it, or the township or the city prohibits it. So we really aren't totally free. Now, the sovereign citizens, they believe that they are free, that there's mistakes in the Constitution, mistakes in the way the Constitution has been interpreted, and consequently, cops have no power over them. No police do, judges don't. No one does. They are sovereign, which means they're self-ruling. Sovereign. They are self-ruling. And they go by various names. There's different types, but generally we can say that anyone who denies the legitimacy of their government is a sovereign citizen. So if that sovereign citizen believes that their government is illegitimate, then that's the qualifier to be labeled sovereign citizen. They believe that in this country, and we'll limit our discussion to this country, in this country, sovereigns believe that much of the government is illegitimate. They believe in conspiracies too. They believe that when they were born, a trust fund was created for them with millions and millions of dollars in it, and that they can write checks on that trust fund. They can buy a car with that trust fund. They don't believe they have to repay their mortgage. They don't believe they have to repay their car loan. They don't have to make any more payments, no more credit card payments. Because there's some technicality that the Constitution was interpreted incorrectly. However, it's not their prerogative to judge the country, to judge the laws. Could a law be unconstitutional? It certainly could be. But we have a system for testing it. That's the judicial system. You think a law is unconstitutional, you go to court. The judge rules on it. If you don't like it, you appeal it. You go to a higher court and appeal it. And maybe you get to the Supreme Court. And they will decide if the law is constitutional or not. You don't have a right to interpret it yourself. You can't decide, oh no, I don't believe it's right, so I'm not going to stop for this cop. That's not your right. You can go to court, but you cannot disregard the laws of this country until the Supreme Court decides that's not a law of this country. Till that moment, you could be right that law ABC is unconstitutional. You could be right, and you could take it to court. But you've got to follow law ABC right until the very moment that the Supreme Court says it's not constitutional. And that could take years. But you have to follow that law, even if you've recognized that it is incorrect. Realize it's not incorrect by definition. It's only incorrect if the Supreme Court says it is incorrect. So all laws must be followed. They also conveniently, sovereign citizens, don't pay taxes. Because after all, it's unconstitutional. They argue with cops. They won't roll down their windows. They can become very violent. They will fight physically with cops. They will shoot cops at times. Many police officers have been harmed or killed by sovereign citizens. Now, you could say, what happens when they go to court? Because they get arrested. They do get arrested at traffic stops oftentimes. And sometimes at home they get arrested. But generally at a traffic stop they'll get arrested because they won't roll down their window. They oftentimes will leave after they've been stopped. They'll continually ask the same questions through the window. Am I being detained? Am I free to leave? And the cop says, yes, you're being detained. No, you're not free to leave. And then the sovereign citizen waits 20 seconds and says, am I being detained? Am I free to leave? They have crazy ideas that the cops cannot use their red and blue lights because it's not an emergency. A traffic stop is not an emergency. And so the sovereign citizen will say, where's the emergency, officer? How can I help you with the emergency? And the sovereign citizen won't admit that he's been pulled over. He has simply pulled over voluntarily to help the cop with the emergency, whatever that emergency would be. Now, on occasion, a cop will get busy or doesn't want to write him up, and you can see these videos. And it was more common before. Now they are usually being written up. They're not letting them go. But in the past they did. A cop might be just too busy, too bothered. He doesn't want to arrest someone and take them to jail tonight. So he'll let them go. And there are videos out there that will show you that's true. But today most of them are arrested, and and oftentimes their cars are towed. They go to jail. They have to pay a bond to get out. And then they have to go to court, and the judge will rule on it. In the courtroom, there has never been a case, never, not one time, has a judge said that the sovereign citizen was correct. No, you're free to go. You're right. The law's wrong. Cops have misinterpreted the law. Not one time. And then if their license isn't already suspended, their license gets suspended. But the sovereign citizen doesn't believe that the judge has power over him, so he continues to drive, whereupon he gets arrested again and again and again, and some will go to jail for a fairly long period of time. And they do lots of things where they can go to jail for fraud and can go to jail for 10 or 15 years for various crimes they commit as they steal your house. They also believe that they have access to your home if you're not using it. And they will sometimes file a quick title, and the title is transferred to their name, which can cost thousands of dollars to reverse. But the point is, they always lose. They pay big time. They pay fines. They pay with jail time and even prison time. At first in the court system, when people would come in and cite imaginary laws and have strange, bizarre court tactics, the judges would oftentimes want a hearing on to evaluate their mental health, because the judges thought this guy must be crazy. And if you look at their courtroom appearances, you would see that they do appear to be crazy. They talk about things, they ask the judge if this is tell the judge he has no control over them because the court is an admiralty court, which means it's to be held at sea, and you're not at sea, and the flag that you have has fringe on it, and that's only on a flag that you would use at sea, so this admiralty court has no power over them. Really bizarre things. I'll leave it up to you to look it up and find out. But it led the judges to believe we should have a mental health evaluation here, see if this person is competent. And they did. Many of them in the beginning were evaluated. And according to the court, the psychiatrists that the court accepted, or the psychologists that were acceptable to the court, these people were not mentally ill. I mean, there are always exceptions. There's always someone who might be delusional, who might be schizophrenic, have some big delusion, and this is part of the delusion. But 99% of the time, these people were found to be perfectly sane, over and over again. And today, the court recognizes this, and very few evaluations are asked for anymore. But people, ordinary people, who hear about this, believe that, hey, if you believe this stuff, you must be crazy. You must be mentally ill. And that brings me to a social psychologist called Elliot Aronson. Very famous. I used his book in my classroom for maybe 10 years. Elliot Aronson, who said, very famous, that just because you do crazy things, or just because someone does crazy things, it does not mean they are crazy. You can look it right up. Elliot Aronson. Get it immediately in AI or immediately in Google search. Because, and this had nothing to do with sovereign citizens, by the way. It had to do with people, just ordinary people, who did things that appeared to be crazy. Most people thought 50 years ago that if somebody killed someone, committed a murder, they were mentally ill. Wow, that person must be crazy. He killed his wife, he must be crazy. And of course, serial killers, people automatically believe they're crazy. But as Aronson says, people who do crazy things are not necessarily crazy. There are a lot of perfectly sane people who do crazy things, bizarre things. Sovereign citizens appear to be bizarre because they believe things that are obviously untrue. And not only that, but they lose in court every time. Their arguments lose in court. Sometimes the case will be dismissed because the cop didn't show up for the trial or on some other technicality, but never, the sovereign citizen belief is never upheld and has never won a case. Not one time. So you would think it'd be a little bit like beating your head against the wall. Why would you keep doing it unless you were maybe crazy? So that's where this concept of craziness and sovereign citizens merges. But the truth is, they are not crazy. They are not mentally ill. They've been tested over and over again. They're argumentative, horribly argumentative. And the more you argue with a sovereign citizen, the more angry they become, and they may become angry enough then to shoot you or stab you. It happens. It's not unusual. A movie was recently made about that, a case that occurred a number of years ago, 5, 6, 7 maybe years ago. We've actually talked to one of the officers killed was the son of a police chief, and we've had the pleasure of some of us of interviewing him. So, because they appear crazy, it does not mean they are, according to Aronson, and according to, which is a fundamental tenet of social psychology. I'd also point out that sovereign citizens, it's a good thing to believe you're a sovereign citizen, because if it's true, hell, you're free. You don't have to listen to the cops. No judge can touch you. No judge can send you to prison. You don't have to pay back any mortgage, any car loan. No taxes. You don't have to pay taxes. It's pretty cool. Plus, if you use some magical words and do some magical type things, literally, write your name certain ways, write sideways on a sheet of paper on the diagonal, you can tap into the millions of dollars that the government has hidden in your account. And you can go to a Maserati dealer and write a document to draw that money out, a couple of $100,000 out of your secret account. Now, of course, it doesn't work, and some sovereign citizens have actually gone to jail for that, prison. Now, where did all this come from, and how can you find out how to get your millions of dollars in your secret account? Well, here's how. You can buy that information on the internet. Hell, you can buy a passport on the internet that says, first of all, here's what it says. It costs you like $150. You'll get this passport, and it'll say, this person cannot be detained by the police. It will say that this person automatically has the right to carry a concealed weapon. No license required in any state. This person cannot be detained for any reason and is above arrest, obviously. And you can buy that. You can buy license plates. Being a sovereign citizen can cost you hundreds of dollars. You can go to seminars to learn how to do this. Yes, you too could be a sovereign citizen. And all it's going to cost you is a donation at the door of $250 to sit through the seminar. So people are making money off of this. They're promoting it, taking advantage of people who sometimes honestly believe that it's real, or mostly people who hope it's real. They really hope that this is all real because it's good. I mean, it couldn't be better. Access to millions of dollars. Don't have to make that car payment, that mortgage payment. Don't have to pay for electricity or gas. It's great if it were real, but it's not. It's never worked. It never will work. Don't forget, if there were a loophole in the law, let's say some law was written such that, the Supreme Court says, hey, look, this wording really does say you don't have to pay taxes. Within a couple of hours, the federal legislators would write a new law, which would correct that language of the old law. You can't win. The system is set up. That's why it's an anti-government movement. The only way you can win is through violence, the overthrow of the government. And that's exactly what many sovereign citizens do. Many of these groups have their own militias where they practice. They got assault rifles and they practice. They have war games. They have war chests, buildings where they go to drink and camp and practice being revolutionaries. Not all, of course, but those groups exist in every state. State militias. And they have been responsible for a great deal of violence over time. So when you hear all this stuff and it sounds so crazy, your thinking is, these people must be crazy, they're mentally ill. And you can see why they aren't. They have been evaluated thousands of times. They've never won a court case. And though they appear, one might think that they're crazy because they believe in and do these crazy things. Remember what Aronson said. People who do crazy things are not necessarily crazy. And that's the truth of it. And this is Analytical Media. Let us know what else you want to cover. If you want to keep up with everything, go ahead and subscribe. We have things coming out almost every day, sometimes twice a day. All mainstream sound psychology, no pop psychology, mainstream stuff. So, I hope we've helped a little. If we did, that's good. If not, we'll try on the next one. Okay, we'll see you then.